First of all, let's talk about your piece in the Australian front page of the Australian today. The top eight universities have some problems with the reform suggested by the Education Minister.
They definitely do, Pete. So it's been since June that these higher ed reforms, which many people might know, sees the cost of student fees for courses like science, teaching, maths, they'll all be slashed, but the cost of humanities and law, those will all skyrocket by at least 113% if these reforms are passed. So they've been controversial for a while, but the universities, especially the group of 8, have a number of big problems with it. The draft legislation that was released last week does not include any of the protections that the minister had promised them, including a $700 million transition fund, indexation of the government grants, a $900 million linkage fund which supports STEM research, because weirdly, although the cost of science and maths degrees are being slashed for students, the increase in government funding does not make up for the loss that will make for total funding for those courses, which could lead to perverse outcomes. So essentially, a lot of universities are saying, look, we're actually incentivized by these changes to get more law and humanities degrees because they'll pay a lot more money and that will result in a lot more money to us. So the group of 8 has a number of changes, but their big concern at the moment, because of the lack of protections in the current bill, they fear that Dan Tehan will now have the power to unilaterally cut funding, government funding, to their courses without having to go through Parliament as he would currently do now.
Yeah.
So, look, they have privately been very concerned about these higher ed reforms for a long, long time, but we have seen both the Group of 8, the Regional Universities Network, and the Innovative Research Universities Group, which represents a number of kind of big outer metro unis. They have all come out in these submissions to the draft legislations in utter revolt, utter rejection of this policy. And Dan Tehan was already facing a really hard fight in the Senate, Pete, to get these changes through, and I think it's a lot harder today.
I tell you what, the other debate, one of several that's taking place at the moment, Richard, is all about super. Jason Clare on the show a short time ago, adamant that the scheduled increases should still go ahead. This is despite some sections, in the Liberal Party suggesting that because of COVID-19 that they should not take place. Where do you see this going?
Look, it seems pretty clear that the Prime Minister's language has changed on this, and that he is backing towards the position of his party room. Whether he'll actually go that far, I think, is unclear at the moment. I mean, the Liberal Party, it has to be said, internally, I think is a little bit dazed and confused by some of the policies that the government has been undertaking. I mean, none of it's particularly Keynesian, none of it's Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, that's for sure. It's more Franklin Roosevelt and Clement Attlee. But this might be a piece of red meat they can give. Obviously, there are a lot of concerns that companies just can't afford these increased super guarantees at this moment in time. But these concerns have actually existed before pre-COVID as well. This push has not come with coronavirus. Like everything, coronavirus has only accelerated it.
Yeah. Jason Clare actually referred to that too. It's a good point. Richard, I know you're a keen observer of international politics. It's a big one this week in the United States. We've got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are going to be officially endorsed by the end of the week when they give their speeches, but it's going to be virtual Democratic conferences, conventions, I should say, that take place this week. Going to be very different to the whole whiz-bang showbiz type events that usually take place. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, he flew to 2 swing states this morning to try and get ahead of it. So I tell you what, there's a bit going on.
There's definitely a bit going on. I actually think that Joe Biden will be pleased that he's got a virtual convention, Pete, because if you remember at the last Democratic convention, the Bernie Sanders supporters were so upset with Hillary Clinton that they even booed her at the beginning of her nomination speech. They even though she ended up getting a rapturous applause, they even booed Michelle Obama at bits. So now all of that's taken away, all the rancor, all the division, all of that is in the sideline, and it's all a very nicely packaged 2-hour telecast of Zoom speeches. I think Joe Biden will be fine with that. In terms of Donald Trump, he's going to 2 swing states because he has to go to 2 swing states. He is in so much trouble.
Is he though? Because the CNN poll yesterday suggested that he's only behind by 4 points now, which is interesting because it's come from CNN.
We come on, Pete. We know not to listen to outlier polls. We know to listen to polling averages. Of course, it's always good to see those outlier polls and say, are things a bit different? But every other poll, you know, NBC, ABC, every other Morning Consult, every other poll that's come out this week is showing him at least 8 or 9. There's been a little bit of tightening from July when things were really bad for Donald Trump in the Black Lives Matter protest period. But it's the biggest, stablest lead of any presidential contender for a very, very long time. He needs to go to those swing states. Even at 4 points, he's nowhere close to winning at the moment. Of course, he has plenty of time to make that up. It's Donald Trump. He's full of surprises. But he better go to those swing states because he's in trouble.